Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last and final day of SHIVIR 2020, our virtual e-commerce summit hosted by Shiprocket. I want to thank you all for attending today, and for all the people who've been with us the past couple of days as well. Thank you, and I hope the summit has been helpful for you so far. SHIVIR has been an endeavor by us to basically create a virtual e-commerce and logistics bootcamp, and the objective behind it is to be able to provide tools, learnings, and opportunities to our sellers to understand more about e-commerce, as well as how they can take their business online. And if you're already online, then how you can actually function better, use new tools, and actually let you know what's happening in the e-commerce industry right now, and how stalwart entrepreneurs who are present with us today have actually coped in the times of COVID-19. Our agenda for today is that we're going to basically, we have 5 panelists with us, all stalwarts in their respective areas, and to learn from their experiences as to how they and their businesses have coped with COVID-19, because all of these businesses are today at new heights, and they have actually benefited from taking the opportunity with both hands that the pandemic has produced. So the idea is to be able to learn from them, and hopefully we can all take away something that how we can make our own businesses better. I'll just start with a few key takeaways that we had from the second day, which was yesterday. I think all our panelists, whether it was Nupur from PayU, Gautam from Shiprocket, both of them had a very, very clear view that the COVID-19 pandemic has created opportunities for most startups to be able to create innovative solutions, to be able to meet the new surge in demand for digital payments, for logistics, for e-commerce. And it has been a case of startups innovating probably much quicker than they ever have in the last few years. We had Vinay Midirata from Ecom Gurukul talk about entrepreneurship and telling us that entrepreneurship is a journey and not a destination. So absolutely, it's something you have to be committed to. It might, for offline sellers today, it might seem that online selling is very easy, but online e-commerce has had its own set of challenges during the pandemic. And it's taken a lot of fortitude by all our entrepreneurs to be able to come out on top of this pandemic. And we had Ashish Goel from Zoho Commerce telling us about disruption and how entrepreneurs need to adapt to be able to make their businesses cope and thrive in the current environment that we're in. We had Kavish from Payoneer, who spoke to us about cross-border selling and the challenges that that business is currently facing and the way forward in a post-COVID world. And finally, we had Rohan Bhargav from Earn who told us a little bit about Earn business model and how they created this unique business model and thrived during the current pandemic. Lastly, of course, we had Divas Khurana from Digicel, who is a marketing expert for e-commerce, and he told new SMEs about how they can scale their businesses. Today, on our final day and in our keynote session, we are joined by Trisha Rajani, who is the CEO at Dr. Vaidyas. Dr. Vaidyas is a new age Ayurveda brand and a very, very successful online brand in an industry which has typically been offline in the past or has been dominated by older brands. Trisha and her team have been able to create a really, really strong franchise for Ayurveda with an online first brand. We have Kush from Facebook, who heads partnerships across Asia Pacific and has 11 years of experience in the APAC region in different functions. We have Anshuk, who's the co-founder of Adyogi, which provides automated marketing solutions for online e-commerce sellers. And we have Navin Joshua from who's the founder of GreenHonchos, which is an e-commerce technology enablement platform. And last but not the least, we have our commander-in-chief at Shiprocket, Saahil Goel, who's the CEO and co-founder of Shiprocket, and has honestly been the heart and soul which has driven the business to the height at which it is today. I'm going to first start off asking Trisha to briefly introduce herself, Dr. Vaidyas, and a little bit about how the business has been over the last few months.
Sure. Thank you so much, Akshay, for having me and the entire Shiprocket team. To everyone who's listening, I hope you are all safe and healthy at home. So I'll just tell you a little about Dr. Vaidyas. It's been a company that's been operational for about 3 years, but backed by 150 years of legacy in the family. So we have had 6 generations of 4 generations out of which are doctors, where we've had 100 formulations being passed over generation by generation. We have a factory in Silvassa where we manufacture our own goods. The whole vision at Dr. Vaidyas was to make it a convenient and easy form use of an age-old science of Ayurveda. We have 5,000 years of Indian heritage and science in Ayurveda, but it's quite upsetting to see that our generation and the younger generations to come are actually a bit unaware about it. So if you speak to our grandparents and older generations about certain herbs, they would have heard about it. So Arjun actually, who's our CEO, had the vision while he was studying in the US, and he saw the whole change with yoga. Yoga was our Indian science that kind of became popular by the West. So he was very clear that he didn't want the same to happen to Ayurveda. He wanted to be that India, with Dr. Vaidyas and other brands, make it a global, science and phenomena, and most people can use it to their convenience. So another whole thing with Ayurveda is that people feel, oh, it's not easy to use, it's inconvenient, it's not tasty. So how do we take all those issues and make it into a more convenient format? So be it we launched a hangover capsule, be it the fact that we took Chavanprash, something we've all grown up with. We took the fact that it's bitter in taste, it's inconvenient to consume, and packaged it into a capsule format for adults, and we packaged it into a toffee format called Chakash for adults. So like this, I mean for children, sorry. So like this, we've actually tried to find out how do we make Ayurveda much more convenient for the 21st consumer, and how do we educate people about the benefits of actually going to Ayurveda. Don't come to us at the end when you've tried everything. Come to us in the beginning. So we believe at Dr. Vaidyas in a much more holistic approach in terms of adopting it as a lifestyle change. So unlike other Ayurveda businesses, we actually decided to take an online approach first. So 95% of our current business is online. Another interesting thing is only 18% of our business actually comes from the tier 1 cities. The rest come from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So we try our best, and of course, Shiprocket is the platform we use as well, to try and reach as many customers who can, be it in Northeast, Jammu Kashmir, the South, wherever we can. Honestly, I've learned about a lot of places in India just because of the business as well, to see wherever they can reach it, we should be there. We offer free consultation through our doctor because we do believe that this has been in the family as well, that every patient and customer should be accessible to a doctor without any charge. Be it with COVID, I think we've had a fantastic team who have literally put their heart and soul into letting us get the products to our customers. In the first 2 weeks of lockdown, our business is based in Mumbai, so everything was obviously gone into shut shop. That we weren't able to dispatch orders, weren't able to open our office. The moment on April 1st, we saw a push from the government as well. Arjun, me, and few other, brave people from our team actually started coming to office, packing, dispatching orders ourselves. The moment delivery started working, we were there. We've had customers who have traveled from really far to come and get the medicine. And when we actually heard how many customers needed the medicine, we said we have to try and ensure to be there for them. Has it been easy? Absolutely not. It's been 10 times harder than running business in a non-COVID scenario, but I think it's worth it. Right now the focus on just getting the product to the customer. The focus has not been that much on what is your ROI? Are you profitable? Are you not? It's what does the customer need? Can you reach it to them as soon as possible? We've also realized that there's been a huge surge in categories. So we've launched like veggie wash, we've launched things for immunity building, ashwagandha, giloy capsules. We're going to soon be reaching Kada. So what is it the need that consumers need right now that we can cater to? So I think that's a little about what Dr. Vaidyas has also done in COVID. I think a hats off to the team. I mean, working from home is very challenging, but they've done a fantastic job. And we're trying our best to do what we can for our customers.
Great, thank you, Trisha. And I can tell you, I am one of your customers. I ordered the veggie wash the moment I got the message for it, and switched over from all those chemical washes that we were using. Kush, welcome to the panel, and thank you for joining us. Again, I would love it if you could take some time to introduce yourself, what you do at Facebook, and how you guys have, just a brief introduction on what you guys have done during COVID times to keep the industry going.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Akshay. So thank you guys for tuning in. So first, I've been at Facebook for close to 5.5 years, probably like half of my professional career, if I would say, multiple roles. I've always been part of small businesses. Why is it's something very integral to me because I come from a family of small business, and it's something which I want to help solve for. So uh, to Akshay's questions of what we've been doing, part of our goal or mission at Facebook is, of course, to help build communities, but also to help small businesses help with the right tools, the right strategies, and the right opportunities so that they can help scale their business. Now, there are two things which I want to say about COVID. One, of course, it's a bad pandemic. Probably, I'm hoping it's one in our lifetime which we all see. And the second is it's a new normal. The one thing which we've learned, which is COVID has done, is it's accelerated things in a very fast way. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. One, we've all been part of different, we're using go to meeting webinar. There've been different we have video tools like Zoom, like Skype. Work from home is already being tested, but now it's accelerated. The same thing what we've seen in e-commerce is the offline to online thing, or the offline retail to online, has accelerated right now. And we're seeing a tremendous surge from before businesses who are moving from their businesses offline to online. So there are a couple of things which we're doing, helping businesses out. One, we've if you go to facebook.com/business/resource, there's a specific column on COVID. Now, if you go to that specific column or that specific section, there are 2 or 3 things we're covering. One is, of course, how there's specific tools. We've come up with specific tools on your page manager, on your business manager, which you can help automate a lot of stuff, so you can reach out to business at scale. Second is, in certain markets in APAC, we've launched something called digital gift cards. So let's assume for a minute, Trisha here, while her business is mostly online, let's assume her business is only offline, and she wants to have a gift card wherein Saahil buys a gift card or Akshay buys a gift card, and whenever she opens back her business offline, I can go and implement, and can use that gift card physically, right? So what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to give her money, get a digital gift card, and use it when she opens the business. So we've pivoted this. We launched this in multiple countries. We are slowly testing it out and rolling it out. The other thing we've launched is something around food. What we realized was, food is an integral part. While physically we can't go in certain parts of the world because you can't, you're on lockdown, or you're as they say, you're in shelter in certain places. So what we've done is we've come up with food stickers tied up with big aggregators, so that these retailers are visible, and of course they are going ahead and delivering their orders. The other thing we're also doing is we're promoting a lot of free online courses. Now, what has happened is there are 2 things which have happened. One, which I talked about, there's a big push from offline to online. But what has happened is a lot of these people don't know what to do online, right? So to kind of support that, what we've done is we're doing a bunch of things with the help of our partners, and of course with the help of all the content which we have. So in India, a couple of weeks back, we launched something called Boost Life, which typically means is you sign up for like a 2-hour course, and through facilitators, they will teach you about what are the different tools about Facebook, both organic and in a paid way. Second thing is through our partners, we are empowering them to use a lot of content, a lot of our tools. As an example, if tomorrow you're a merchant, you want to create a catalog in a matter of seconds versus minutes, how do you do that using a platform? So both education and tools is where our focus big is. And as I said before, it's COVID, while of course it's a bad pandemic, of course there are serious health issues, it has just accelerated the way the business are done online.
Great, thank you, Coach. Next, I'm going to introduce Anshuk from Adyogi. And Anshuk, please tell us a little bit about yourself, about the business, as well as how you guys have adapted to COVID-19.
Thanks, Akshay. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be a part of this webinar. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am one of the co-founders of Adyogi. Adyogi is a marketing automation platform for e-commerce companies We help brands scale up using platforms like Facebook and Google, and we automate the entire process of creative and optimization. So back in March 2020, like all of us, we also were hit by COVID. A lot of brands we work with, they said that, look, my warehouse is shut down. Look, my delivery is not happening. Why should I continue running my ads? Right? And that is a very common question which anybody should be asking if your business is not working, right? What we did is in the month of March to May 2020, we actually worked very closely with all the 100 brands, e-commerce brands. We found that while the campaigns, while the sales are not happening, there was a window of opportunity for a lot of brands. And the reason the window of opportunity existed is because people were spending more time on social platforms, and I'm sure Kush can speak about it. And advertisers were not actually advertising on social media, right? A lot of brands said that, look, if I cannot sell, why should I show my ads? So what essentially happened is in March to May, the cost of ads on Facebook went down by 70%. We actually have a day-on-day CPM chart across our clients. We saw the CPM drop down by 30% the day lockdown happened, and another 30% once, of course, there was a 21-day lockdown announced, right? So 70% lower CPM. So we essentially said that, look, if you're spending 1 lakh earlier to reach a certain audience, you can actually spend only 30,000 and reach the same number of people, right? So this is a strategy we implemented with a lot of brands. We asked them to reduce their budgets, but do not pause their campaigns permanently. What we also told them is, look, the audience which you are currently getting can be remarketed once the lockdown is ended. So basically, think of it as for 30 days, you invested in getting very rich set of people to your website. And the moment the lockdown is over and the deliveries have started, you can start remarketing those people, right? So this is something which we worked on with a lot of brands. And we eventually found out that this was actually a window of opportunity for a lot of brands. They could save on their marketing cost. They could get very rich audience on their websites. And the moment the lockdown lifted, we saw brands getting very good return on ad spend. They were actually able to get 50 to 60% higher efficiencies than what they were getting prior to the lockdown. So I think there is an opportunity which still lies. Even today, when I map the Facebook and Google costs, they are around 30% lower, I would say. I would imagine this cost will come back to normal by the end of August. But this is a good opportunity for all brands which are considering e-commerce. Of course, we all know that the offline world is still shut down. The malls are not open in a lot of places. So the conversion rates on the website are also increasing. Now imagine if I was planning to buy a t-shirt earlier, I would say that, look, why don't I walk to my nearby mall? Today I'm saying, look, I don't want to walk to my nearby mall. Let me just order it on my website, right? So the cost of ads remain lower. The conversion rates remain higher, which means the return on ad spend which you can get today is still higher than what you were getting pre-COVID. So I think great opportunity to be in e-commerce, and really excited to answer more queries during the panel discussion. Over to you, Akshay.
Thank you, Anshuk. So next, Navin, who's the co-founder of GreenHonchos, which is a e-commerce enablement platform. Navin, would be great to understand a little bit about GreenHonchos. I'm sure you guys have also seen a surge in business like most other e-commerce operators right now. So tell us a little bit, you're in that sweet spot today. So tell us a little bit about what GreenHonchos does and how you guys have adapted over the last few months.
Sure, thanks. Pleasure to be here with all of you guys, and especially the attendees taking out time. So myself, Navin, as co-founder of GreenHonchos, founded about 8 years back. In those times, didn't know what we were doing much. The market wasn't heating up as it is now. But I think very much aligned to the topic of discussion today. We've always felt that D2C is where brands need to be. So not for any bias, but we do obviously have technology capabilities there more on the front end. We partner with almost everyone on the panel and on the other days as well to just bring that ecosystem together. Where we feel there could be a slight difference is because we're a full stack agency. We love what Shopify brings on board. We love what what Magento 2 can do for certain businesses. We also know the strengths of a large open source ecosystem like WooCommerce. A lot of the brands, have taken D2C plunges at least twice or thrice in the last 5 to 6 years. Uh, just decisions made, half ready, half baked. The biggest problem is, what next? Because it's as easy as dime a dozen websites being put out there by developers. But I do think e-commerce as a business or as a transacting platform is a totally different ballgame, which is where we have full stack solutions. We also have an enterprise platform for large businesses and brands that end up scaling more massively than the plans. We are proud and glad to be partnering with some of them that are nationalized brands. What's also accelerated, action in this space, like all the other, distinguished panelists were saying, is the availability of inventory for the offline players, and the repurposing of it towards e-commerce. I think a lot of intelligence is there in that data, and the overused buzzwords of omni-channel versus hyper-local, and how should brands that have the offline strength and the customer base, really be able to be there to serve on or across online channels, which is clearly here to stay, at least for the next foreseeable future. It is a point of inflection. I do think that the pandemic has ensured that there may not be any turning back, and e-commerce would only grow from strength to strength. Apart from the technology play, I think a lot of the brands we keep talking to in the ecosystem, and also referred by folks on this panel, are looking at inputs and advice or intelligence around who to use, what to use. Here is my problem statement that is very specific to my business. What kind of exposure of inventory can result in higher sell-through, where people like Anshuk would love to have much larger sets of inventory to deliver much higher ROAS as well these days, which is also a great thing that we are seeing, that earlier even return on ad spend that used to be around 5 to 6x is even touching the double digits fairly easily these days. One is just the exposure of inventory and the right pricing and quantity available, and on the other side, the ad rates and the targeting getting much more razor sharp, with the ecosystem here. So the path to revenue, as well as the awareness, more like a full 360, is what GreenHonchos likes to work with and bring the entire ecosystem together, more as a one-stop solution for brands.
Thank you, Navin. And last but not least, we have Saahil Goel, CEO and co-founder of Shiprocket. So Saahil, you and I have been on this journey together the last few months, but again, do tell us how it has been like the last few months coping with logistics, which was one of the first casualties, obviously, along with offline businesses of the lockdown. And tell us a little bit about Shiprocket, the journey so far, and how you've coped with the lockdown.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Akshay. And first of all, I want to thank our, esteemed panelists. We've got nearly 70, 80 years of great experience amongst this panel, which I think, is very useful from all sort of parts of the e-commerce transaction. I also want to thank all of our attendees, who attended not only just today, but all who also come on day 1 and 2. Thanks a lot for making it to SHIVIR, and we hope, this panel is been adding value and will add value in helping you with your e-commerce journey. So before talking about COVID, maybe I'll spend a couple of minutes and talk about what Shiprocket is, just for maybe some of our attendees who may not know in detail. So Shiprocket basically is a post-purchase experience platform, right? And without throwing too many words together, what it's trying to do is, the platform is trying to enable D2C, social commerce, and any kind of online retailer to mimic a great cutting edge experience right from the point of checkout all the way to their customer's doorstep, all the way to, through doing faster shipping, through doing picking which carrier to use when, to optimizing cost for shipping, to help with cash on delivery collections, to optimizing last mile, all the way keeping the consumer engaged, right? So while there are tons of tools available and there's a lot of sort of talk about, just in this panel so far, we've talked about ROS and talked about marketing, but all of this is top of the funnel, right? Which means bringing consumers to your website, bringing them to your checkout. But the real sort of one of the real things that we miss as retailers is the fact that if we don't deliver a great experience after the checkout, right, we may get that transaction because it's already, the bull's already fired. But the reality is, everybody on the panel and everyone will tell you that you really build a great e-commerce brand by driving repeat purchase. And part of that repeat purchase is how the consumer felt after they placed the order, right? Did it arrive on time? Was the box in a good quality packaging, right? If they wanted to reschedule their delivery 2 days later, were they given a way to do it? Were the consumers kept in loop if they are getting delayed? Are they receiving messaging on multiple channels where they can see it? So I think we've kind of, and we, by the way, as a company, have played parts across the transaction, from being a shopping cart provider to being a marketing enabler, all the way now to saying, look, this post purchase is where a lot of heavy lifting has to be done, right? There aren't that many tools which effectively are able to stitch this process up and make it as plug and play as possible for the millions of retailers in India that would potentially use this, and the further hundreds of millions of consumers that are shopping from those retailers. So Shiprocket is trying to solve that, trying to bring the sort of Amazon type of consumer experience to the rest of the market. That is what we strive to do, and that is our journey, right? So there's several things that are getting launched this year. Some of you guys may have heard about Shiprocket Fulfillment. So that is our newest launch that went live last month, right? In further again to try and make goods store closer to where consumer demand is centered, and being able to promise next day delivery, right? Which will lead to lower RTO rates. It will lead to faster kind of cash cycles if it's a COD order, and just overall consumers today, I think, slowly are becoming less and less price sensitive. At least the sort of the not the early adopters, but the buyers, e-commerce buyers who are about 3-4 years old now are less sensitive to price, but they are more sensitive to how long will it take, can I return it, right? They are more sensitive to trust and to convenience, right? And most importantly, predictability. So how do you decouple those parts, bring it out as an offering to the rest of the retail market so as to be able to build comparable experiences there, is really what Shiprocket stands for. There will be several other initiatives across the year that we launch, and obviously you guys will hear about it as we do them, but just wanted to lay that framework out there for people so they could really understand which space Shiprocket is really trying to play in, apart from doing cash on delivery, fulfillment, shipping, and consumer communication. So as Akshay said, and as I think we all know, that as India went into lockdown, the very first thing that got cut off was logistics, right? Which was not true, by the way, for a lot of parts of the world, right? In the US, for example, e-commerce became 2.5 times, 2 times. In many parts of the world, e-commerce, the boom happened as soon as COVID became a thing, right? Unlike here, where we were all holed up into our houses and everything was shut down, right? It was sort of like a curfew situation from day one. And obviously, while things were shut, the government did allow essential goods to move. So that was the first thing that I think Shiprocket tried to build in very quickly by talking to the our carrier networks, by building those capabilities back into the platform, by ensuring the right paperwork from our retailers, and by onboarding a lot of new retailers who are now wanting to sell PPE kits or sanitizers, masks, or other hygiene related items, right? So I think after that first phase, it really became more about, well, it was partly to do with, so a lot of things were happening together, right? We were working from home, right? We weren't sure where things were going to go. It was all like, well, we have no idea, literally no idea how things will turn out. Like, we have no idea because it's all so government controlled, and it's nothing like that our parents have seen or we have seen. We don't have any we don't have a fallback to say, oh, you know what, it happened like this X years ago, so here's how it will happen this time around. There was no benchmark. So I think a lot of it had to be done ad hoc, right? A lot of it had to be done very reactively to say, okay, this is what I've got in front of me. How do I solve this? And I think that took a lot of readjusting of gears, which I'm sure a lot of you guys on the panel and maybe in the attendance, in the attendees would have also seen. But after we were able to move through the whole essential goods, enablement on the platform, we moved on to then very quickly launching hyperlocal, right? So we realized the fact that local goods and local movement, which was up till now not a big segment, at least for mom and pop as a category, that would become big, right? So we launched hyperlocal on the platform. We launched our hyperlocal support in something we in our Shiprocket social platform, which is a free website, one-page website builder where you can very easily, as Kush mentioned, right, just digitize your catalog in minutes, right? You just go there, set up your catalog, set up your website, and you can enable it with hyperlocal shipping as well. So literally any Kirana store can go online in a matter of minutes, right, if they have their catalog ready. As a next step, we did a lot of work on pin code serviceability. Being India's largest aggregator, we had the integration with any and every courier out there that was operating. There was a lot of fluctuation. There still is, by the way, right? So Tamil Nadu is in lockdown at the moment, and there's other sort of things going on. So this fluidity of, okay, what is working where at what time created a lot of confusion for the market. So as an aggregator, we took it on ourselves to sanitize that pin code, serviceability and keep it current, almost like a near real-time basis, and provide that with tagging on, is this red zone, is this green zone, is this orange zone, so that sellers could make intelligent choices as and when the situation evolved. We enabled contactless delivery using OTPs and using signatures which were either done on a screen or using pictures of delivered packets in some cases, right? So there were a lot of things that came up as a result of what was going on in the market. And we, as things opened up, which was I think around 18th or 19th of somewhere mid-May, mid to end May, that is when we started seeing the real sort of boom come back. And this is where I think a lot of what Navin and Anshuk were talking about started happening, where CPMs being lower, conversion rates being higher. We even saw last mile COD conversion rates being higher, which is sort of very, very physical in nature. It is nothing to do with Facebook, or it's very sort of very psychologically driven, saying I don't have a choice, so I'm just going to accept this order because I can't now say that I'm going to walk to my local market and get it, right? So we saw a 15% lift in failure rates, well, inverse of failure rates at the last mile, which was very, 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 very unique to experience for us, right? So overall, I think, look, it's been an interesting time, right? I think there is a lot of interesting things yet to happen, especially for e-commerce, right? I will continue saying this, and if you aren't thinking about going online yet, you are making a mistake, because believe me, this is, and I hate to say this is the new normal. It's been overused across many webinars and many Facebook posts, but this is the new normal, right? Look at yourselves as consumers and look at yourselves as sellers, and you will realize that there is no way that you cannot be digitally present or digitally active at the moment, right? We ourselves have seen a lot of our retailers who, let's say, used online as a 10% kind of channel, like a defocus channel. A lot of them have now flipped, right? Because not by choice, but by design, where online now is their way to sort of reach customers. And a lot of sellers have, adopted, platforms like Shopify or Magento or whatever it is, or WhatsApp, right? We have people who use WhatsApp and Google Forms as a very effective way of driving e-commerce just to their own customer list. So there's all kinds of innovation happening, for easy adoption, for easy marketing, easy onboarding, and Indian entrepreneurs are sort of one of the smartest in the world, right? I know a lot of us will figure it out, but the reality is that digital growth is going to be here for a long time, and many of these are habit forming, right? So many consumers, for example, who ordered for the first time, probably got used to it, to the convenience and to the safety in this case, and that habit is not going to, even when COVID disappears, which will hopefully, knock on wood, be soon, but even when it does, I don't think a lot of those habits would disappear overnight, right? And many of them would stay for good, which I think there'll be like a step function where, if India added, 250 million shoppers over the last, I don't know, X years, there's a good chance that we might add another 100 million, and then they will stay shoppers. So things that would have happened in the course of 3 years maybe are going to happen in 6 months when it comes to digital conversion. So I think those are great opportunities. If you think about these numbers, they're great opportunities for people who, let's say, sold offline and need to go online. People who were not in retail can get into retail and sell online, right? Because it's just a great opportunity, right? And the good thing is that when the initial wave of e-commerce happened in India, the infrastructure wasn't available. Whether you talk about sort of, marketing platforms or ecosystem around support of how to do this, knowledge, awareness, I think a lot of that has drastically changed in the last few years, where now it's there is enough resource available. If somebody has an idea and they want to go online, there's access to sourcing, there's access to marketing, there's access to building a website, there's access to selling on marketplaces, and there's access to shipping. So every category has got an easy few players that make it very easy for you to do this. So I think all of those things put together make it a very, very interesting time for new brands to be born in India. It's a very interesting time for offline brands to go omni-channel. I think they're again beaten to death, but that's a reality, right? For example, with having hyperlocal as well as national shipping available, we have been enabling hyperlocal for some of the big brands in India as well, because it gives us visibility into saying that I know this order is coming from Delhi, and I know this brand has a store in Delhi, so I don't have to ship it from Bangalore. I can just ship it hyperlocal via Dunzo from Delhi, and I can enable 2-hour delivery for this particular transaction, right? And that ability to do that will become more and more important for a lot of the offline brands, because they have primary real estate, they have a lot of investment into rentals, into shops in the malls, and I think a lot of that is great asset as these brands try to compete with fast delivery, very, very fast delivery, hourly delivery, and things like that. So a lot of these concepts that had been talked about, omni-channel is not a new word. We have been talking about it for the last 5 years or 4 years at least now, right? But really, I think it's starting to come together now because there is no choice, right? I think people don't have a choice but to adopt all of these sort of features and technologies. So again, I think it's I'm fairly excited. While I know it's a grim time overall, there are a lot of issues, there are a lot of bad news around us, but I am looking forward to, as a digital entrepreneur, to the next few years of how this will impact us. And there will be many new ways to innovate in this kind of rapidly growing market, which creates automatically a ton of opportunities for everyone who is participating in it. So I welcome everyone, to kind of wholeheartedly put your souls into digital. This is the future. It has been for a while, but now it's unignorable at this point. Over to you, Akshay.
Thanks, Saahil. So again, thank you to all our panelists and our speakers for that introduction, as well as telling us more about your businesses and how you've been adapting to the current pandemic. For the audience, I'd like to encourage all of you, if you have any questions, please look at the screen. There is a question button there where you can directly ask us the questions, and my team will keep on forwarding them to me so I can ask the panelists about those questions at the end in our Q&A section. So I encourage you to use that question mark button to ask our panelists any questions that you may have so you can learn from their experiences. So post the introductions, the next part of it is going to be a keynote session where we're going to talk to our panelists about certain aspects of their business, get their views on e-commerce, and basically a lot of the questions that we have come up with, as well as what have been asked over the last couple of days, we would love to get their views on it. So it's going to be, again, like an informal coffee chat. And I said during this session, please do send us your questions. And at the end, we will also make sure that we incorporate all your questions and ask our panelists to give you guys answers right at the end. So again, I'm going to start off, Saahil, with you. One of the things that I'd love to know is that you spoke about the situation during the lockdown being very, very dynamic, right? PIN codes were changing, courier companies were sometimes coming on, sometimes coming off. Even right now, we're seeing, not with Tamil Nadu, but with Chennai specifically, the city's gone into a lockdown, and it's thrown logistics into complete tailspin all over again for many e-commerce sellers. So what advice would you have for people who are selling online to be able to grapple with these ongoing changes? How should they be? How should they be dynamic? How should they adapt so that they can keep on top of all of the changes that are happening as far as logistics is concerned?
So talking purely from a online B2C commerce perspective, right? As Akshay said, there is a lot of flux, right? I mean, it's far less than what it was during the lockdown itself, but it's still there. There's still containment zones, there's still regulations, there's still things which, let's say, are, there's other issues around manpower. For example, and some of my panelists like Trisha would know this from her operations, where it's not easy, right? There's still issues around the manpower that the logistics companies are facing, right? There's a lot of migrant worker problems that people have to, that the logistics companies have to deal with. So the advice to SMEs would be basically to, obviously, like I said earlier, can't stress more. This is no better time than this to go digital, first of all, right? Now, how do you grapple with constantly evolving logistics is to be able to, use either a platform like Shiprocket, right, where you can be able to manage multiple, couriers in one place. If you use one carrier today, you may be at their mercy of which branch is open, which branch is shut. There is demand growing not only on Facebook, but also on Amazon and Flipkart and other marketplaces. So those are supply chain consumers as well, right? So there's all kinds of movement in the market, right? Which may not be apparent to you as a retailer if you just use your neighborhood courier, or or any one of the any single courier rather, right? So we strongly recommend that you tie up with either an aggregator like Shiprocket, or you end up using at least 3 or 4 carriers to be able to manage your volumes in these fluid times, right? And we have seen a lot of retailers shying away from COD, and I think that is a smart thing to do at the moment, simply because buyers are converting on on prepaid. So why even offer it? But that being said, we are also seeing the trend coming back. As I said earlier a little bit, COD conversion is also going up, because I think it is a matter of choice. I would advise you to be very patient with delivery times. Things are a little bit off the charts. These are not normal times, right? Things sometimes can move within 2 days when they're supposed to move in 2 days, or sometimes can move in 20 days, right? And the surprising thing is that consumers are still receiving those packets after 20 days, because clearly they don't have a option as such. So just kind of be mindful of that, right? If you're not online yet, please go online. This is the best time to do it. And as far as logistics goes, again, spread your risk, diversify, your coverage by using multiple partners, either through an aggregator or directly.
Thanks, Saahil. So I guess one of the questions I have for you, Trisha, is that over the last couple of days, we've spoken to many of our audience members who've joined this session, and a lot of them are thinking of coming online, right? And they may not be traditional online e-commerce entrepreneurs. It's the first time they're looking to come online. A lot of them don't have essentially even products in mind right now. They're just attending the session to figure out they want to be e-commerce entrepreneurs, and they're trying to figure out how they should even start. One of the things that I was very impressed, and you briefly spoke about this earlier, is the ability with which Dr. Vaidya has adapted, right? Whether it's the product launches, whether it was the veggie wash, which was an ideal time for it to come out, also competing with a lot of other offline only brands, right? Ayurveda, again, I'm a practitioner myself. I'm a patient myself. I've been following for 15 years, has traditionally been very fragmented, right? I started going to a Vaid 15 years ago, who used to make a little pudiya with little herbs, no name, nothing. You just knew that this one has to be taken at this time. It was a complete black box, like you say, right? To today, where people actually on Ayurveda, I know I was at your office and I saw people running around all the time, and you had your employees basically advising people when they were asking about dosage, about treatments. It's become more transparent, right? It's become a little bit more transparent, like Western medicine, where there are formulations that a layman can take for a pre-existing condition. So you guys have really been very adaptable in, coming up with new products, adapting to situations like this. What suggestion would you have for these e-commerce entrepreneurs as they are looking now to start new businesses from a product perspective? What should they keep in mind? What are the things that have really helped you bring the brand to being one of the leading players in Ayurveda today?
So I'm going to break up the part into 2-3 different, answers. I think the one thing is that personally, if you ask me or if you ask Arjun, he'll say we were 3 weeks too late in the veggie wash. We should have launched 3 weeks earlier. But everything is not in your hand, right? Be it getting the bottle from somewhere, getting the approvals, getting the labels. So there are many, many parts to play. So I think the number one thing that I would recommend is if you are launching a new product, and this could be across any sector, make sure every single part of the supply chain is mapped out on day 0, and then actually timelines are met and buffers are managed. Because tomorrow I could get my bottles, I could get my labels. If I don't have my caps, I can't do anything. My raw material is just stuck. And it is very difficult. Also have backups. Literally identify your backups from day 0 as well. That okay, fine. If I have a problem with X raw material or Y label, what am I going to do? Who can be my backup? And then you also have to figure out, and this is, I guess, each business, depending on the stage, will have to take a decision. Where are you okay to let go a little bit on cost? Right? Some things may come quicker to you, but they will be more expensive. So where is your negotiation power or your budget that you have that leeway to actually make a decision? So it's not easy, but it's not impossible, right? We've launched 4 products with a factory which was only at 35% capacity in the beginning 2 months. So I think it's very important to be very clear about all those things upfront. The second thing about how do you pick your product, right? I think if you are an existing player and are just looking to branch out, ask your customer. We got a lot of feedback, and this is even pre-COVID, to be honest. We got a lot of feedback from our consumers of what is it they needed. They needed something for muscle. We had launched a male sexual wellness product. Straight after that, we got a lot of demand saying, what about female sexual wellness? Do you not have anything for that? Right? PCOS. So we got a lot of feedback from consumers of what they need. If you are a new brand that you don't have access to that, I think that you can't just put all your eggs in one basket and say, I'm only going to launch one product. No, I think you'll have to look at 2-3 different products, experiment a little, get feedback, and then decide. It's also important to map out what is existing, what are you adding as a differentiator. Sanitizer is the best example I can give. Everyone wanted to launch sanitizer, right? From cement companies, paint companies, to Ayurveda brands, everything. So at Dr. Vaidyas, we were like, okay, creating a sanitizer is really not that unique. Anyone can do it. You can even make a sanitizer at your own house. So what is it that you can add to your sanitizer to make it different? Price is also completely in control only by the government. So you don't have a price game either to play, correct? So we said, okay, we are an Ayurveda business. What herbs or what research do we have that we know that adding certain herbs will have additional properties to your sanitizer? So that's the way we approached it, right? So that's our differentiator that we felt that we could add to it. Similarly with veggie wash, there's this whole stigma of can you use chlorine, can you not use chlorine to wash your products? We wanted to keep it as natural as possible. So we spent a little bit more time doing the R&D, all of that, but we were very clear we wanted to have a chlorine-free product. That's a differentiator. So I think you have to find a differentiation. Just think Chyawanprash and immunity products are selling, so we should just get on that bandwagon. I think that's a bit too late because I also do think that there's a lot of players right now. So how do you add that differentiation would be my other advice.
And just one last part, I guess, is when, as you build Dr. Vaidyas into an organized new age brand amidst a pretty competitive and fragmented industry, what are some of the learnings that you can share with our audience as to what helped you come out on top?
So I think many. I think the one thing is, as a company, you have to be very, very clear. This is what I want. When we initially launched, people told us we were crazy. We firstly went online instead of going offline. We decided to launch on our own website rather than launch on Amazon first. The reason we did that, it's more expensive. It's more nerve pulling, to be honest. It's much more stressful. But the reason why we wanted to do it is we were very clear we needed to understand who is Dr. Vaidya's customer, right? Like I wanted to know, have that information upfront of who is a Dr. Vaidya's customer. Do I need to reach them through Facebook, Google, TikTok, email, WhatsApp? What is the right way to do it? If I had gone straight to third parties, I wouldn't be able to. I think having processes in place is extremely important. Did we do everything right on day one? Of course not. But did you learn from the mistake? Did you figure out where did you go wrong? How do you avoid doing it next time is very important. SOPs in place, right? We had to grow a team from 4 people to 120 people in a span of less than 18 months, which is honestly very difficult to do, to manage people, train people. So having SOPs is great. I think the other biggest thing is everything cannot be done in-house. So where you actually need to go, and outsource something, go ahead and do it. For example, using Shiprocket as an aggregator. Could I, from a tech perspective, bandwidth, link 8 different courier partners in one go? No, absolutely not. I didn't have that bandwidth or the operational things. But how do you go and find such solutions that you can't have? Some things need to stay in-house. Some things, figure out who's better at it and use their expertise. And I honestly think that talk to a lot of people. Like now, when I speak to some entrepreneurs, I literally feel like there's nothing wrong in sharing. Please don't do this. We made this mistake. Learn from our mistake. So I feel like people are actually, especially in the D2C space, people are very approachable. Reach out to them. Worst case, they will say no or they won't reply. But in 99% of the cases, I feel like people do help. So I think reach out, learn from people's mistakes, and very important to set short-term and long-term milestones. We do that. We set milestones for number of orders on Amazon, number of orders on Dr. Vaidyas, number of product launches, and we celebrate each and every one of those milestones set out. So each team has their own milestones, but when we achieve that milestone, it's damn important to also appreciate the fact that yes, we reached here. Okay, now what's the next? So I think that's another key thing, that set small milestones and then you'll reach your larger goal.
Great. Thank you, Trisha. I think that's really helpful for all our budding entrepreneurs out there. Just before we go on to the next question, I'm going to ask my colleague to run a short poll. Through this SHIVIR session, we've been trying to ask some burning questions to our audience on how they've been coping with the pandemic. So as much as you learn from our panelists and audiences, we can also learn from you. So I just have a poll which is being opened right now. So would request our panelists if you can answer that question for us. Great, thank you everybody. I think the question we had was around what kind of marketing strategy have you chosen in post-COVID times? And we found that most of the people, actually 28% of the people have answered that they've decreased their marketing budgets, which is not surprising. 24% have shifted channels to different marketing channels, and 20% have shifted from acquisition to retention. Again, very, very topical. As I go ask my next speaker, Kush, can you tell us a little bit about advice that you would have for all the people who are now either starting e-commerce businesses or looking to come online for the first time, or just adapt offline to online? What would be your suggestion for them as they go about thinking about their marketing strategy?
Sure. So a couple of things. So thanks, Akshay, for the question. First is, as Saahil said, this acceleration from offline to online was inevitable. COVID has just made it faster. So I'll probably say 3 things. One is double down online. It's here to stay. Second, find a partner. To Trisha's point, I 100% agree. And just to give you, some examples, if you talk to a Shopify, if you talk to, let's say, a base in Japan or a Source JP in Japan, which are website builders, both have seen double-digit growth over the last 3 months in terms of businesses moving from offline to online, right? So, which brings to the point is, you need a partner, because there was so much uncertainty when COVID came in. You need to focus on your core business and find aggregators / partners to do the rest of the stuff. And the third thing I'll probably say is, learn, get yourself educated. A big miss, or I would say a big gap right now is a lot of retailers don't understand how offline works or online works, because most of the time they're spending, or they were spending, on offline. And things which you do offline versus offline, there's a lot of difference. Of course, there's an omni-channel play, but the way you run an offline campaign versus online campaign is a lot of difference. And that's why I would just stress on the point is use the tools. There's free content out there. There's a thing which we promote called Facebook Blueprint. which has over 200 Facebook rated organic, both paid videos. It's self-paced. You can read it at your own pace. So yeah, those three things I would just say, right? I mean, one is, this is a time, double down online. Second, work with a partner. And third, get yourself educated, because this is a time you need to, double down or accelerate on offline or online. I'm sorry.
Great, thanks. Anshuk, you as well, again, given that this is your domain, what advice would you have for people? Because again, people say that decreasing marketing budgets, but this could just be the ideal time to actually up the ante a little bit for people who really who are committed to online long term.
Yes, absolutely. So when I saw that 28% of the people said we would decrease online marketing budget, I wasn't surprised at all. I was actually expecting a higher number. But yes, I think if we come across a lot of brands who are starting to do online, and we have worked with many such brands over the last many years. Examples could be brands like bunai.com, which started selling women fashion with us. A few things are very important. Number one, when you are setting up your own website, I think Kush mentioned a very good point there. Pick the right partner. Okay, we have seen many brands who start building a very custom-built website, who hire developers to build a website, but website of e-commerce is now becoming more and more standardized. Right? So pick up a standard platform. It could be Shopify, it could be Magento. Pick up a right partner to build a website, but avoid building it right from scratch using like a pure coded bottom-up kind of an approach. Because what happens in those cases is you build a website, but the conversion rates may not be high. Right? Standard platforms have a lot of A/B testing to figure out that the conversion rates are high. Right? Second is setting up the website is actually only 5 to 10% of the effort, I would say. A lot of us would have set up your own websites. Today on Shopify, there would be more than 1,000 websites getting set up in India alone. Right? What becomes very important once you set up the website is how do you get your first 100 orders? I think 100 orders, in my opinion, is a very big milestone. A lot of brands struggle to go from 0 to 100. Right? Beyond 100, as Trisha mentioned, I think you get a lot of feedback from your customers. You start learning a lot of optimizations and process efficiencies, and you are able to sail through it. But the first 100 orders becomes very important, which is where my suggestion would be that either pick up digital marketing knowledge, like Kush mentioned, Facebook Blueprint is a great source of information, or pick up the right marketing partner. Because I see a lot of brands who come to me and say, look, we started our own website. We have been running, let's say, traffic campaigns on Facebook for the last 2 years, but we haven't got much sales, or maybe last 6 months, but we haven't got much sales, right? And the reason could be very simple, right? You're probably not set up the campaign right. You probably should be setting up a conversion optimized or a purchase optimization campaign and not necessarily a traffic campaign, right? So digital marketing is very complex. There are platforms like Facebook, Google, TikTok. There are hundreds of, like maybe not 100, maybe 50 optimization strategies on all of them. So either build an in-house knowledge or find the right partner, but getting the marketing strategy right is very important. And I'll give a very small example there. A lot of brands, we did an extensive testing with almost all the brands we work with. Very small changes in your marketing campaigns can have huge impact. Like an example, should you include price in the ad or not, right? If you're selling an e-commerce product. And we have seen in almost all cases, including the price in the ad is very important, because you pre-qualify the audience. If you don't include the price, people will land on your website, you will get a lot of clicks, but you won't get the conversion, right? Similarly, a lot of brands try to run banner ads and they divert traffic to the homepage. Now, we have seen that for e-commerce, product ads work almost always. Where you show a product in the ad, you divert people on the product page, the lesser the number of clicks on the website, the higher the conversion rate. Right? So very, very small techniques on setting up an e-commerce campaign can actually make a huge difference in the performance of those campaigns. So figure out the right partner, figure out the right resources where you learn your marketing, and get these right in the first place. Otherwise, there might be a scenario where you struggle to get your first 100 orders, and there would be nothing wrong with your product. Your product will be absolutely right. Your website will be absolutely right. You probably haven't set the right marketing campaigns, and you would question yourself, am I selling the right thing, or what am I doing wrong? Right? So that would be my advice to all the new e-commerce. Over to you, Akshay.
Great, thank you, Anshuk. So again, we learned about how to choose the right product. We learned about some of the marketing strategies. So Navin, as a lot of, I'm sure, e-commerce entrepreneurs and businesses are coming to you to help them go online, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that they face, and how are you guys helping them overcome these challenges?
Right. Thanks. So I'll just take Anshuk's thought a bit forward, because I think when we talk about selecting the right platforms or the right partners, I think I guess we all see ourselves as the right partners. There's no doubt about that. But more than that, I think. So I'll give you a classic example of when you do custom build, and a lot of them have brands have done these kind of experiments in the past. So the reasons why brands want to shift from what they are also are peculiar. So for example, a brand could come up and say, "Yeah, I'm on Shopify. I cannot customize my checkout." And really, my question is, why do you need to customize your checkout? It already has a best-in-class industry standard checkout. So in many ways, all of us are a marketer or a UX specialist by birth, whether it's a customer or not, but you feel you are because it's visible. So similarly, tinkering around too much with even things like call to actions, where you have your size and price, the marketing, is really your targeting and your audiencing when you bring them in. But really, a lot of them get it very wrong, where at least I feel that 50% of it is on the website. There are really only 3 to 4 call to actions that you want. Some brands get it fairly complicated by adding too many showcases, like there sometimes is in an offline store. Once you add to cart, ये भी दिखा दो, वो भी दिखा दो, कुछ तो लेके जाओ, and really it kind of messes it up, and so probably I'm just mentioning some rudimentary issues, but more from an attendee perspective on this platform, I'm trying to just convey that some of these have expertise and is built on algos that are there on a much larger data set. So even things like filters and sorts, there are a lot of brands that come and say, "नहीं, मुझे ना ये 3 प्रोडक्ट ऊपर में दिखाने हैं और इसको इधर ही रखो," and the fact is there's a lot more data, there's a lot more algo that is going. Facebook and the things like Adyogi ad platforms, etc., have already kind of built cases for that. Even something as basic as search on your website, is something that people get so frequently wrong. And there are fantastic tools available even within these platforms that we support, as well as out of the box search, because I think search based results result in at least 2x of your standard navigation based search results. So there is a fair amount of insights that are available, more from a technology coupled with digital kind of an experience, because at the end of the day, to be honest, everyone wants sales, and there are way too many technology teams out there as front-end enablers that are saying, "Ye aisa acha dikhta hai, so let's do it like this," and so the job is done. But as Trisha was also saying, the D2C community is very, very active, where I think reaching out, asking for the right kind of help, and figuring out how it's working, and also quite importantly, what has not worked. I think that method of elimination is actually even much more important than the method of selection. So, those were my insights, Akshay, from the front end side of it.
Great, thank you, Navin. So before we go on to our next question, we're going to run another short poll. So I'd request our audience and our participants to please vote. So the question we're asking is, again, what way of business going forward are you going to adopt? Great. Thank you, everybody. I think very heartening to see that we have about 40% of the people saying that they want to do an online only business. But even more heartening is that 61% are saying they're going to be doing business offline and online. And again, like I say that, we should never underestimate the power of offline channels as well. Even though we're today talking about online stores and online businesses, offline has been the traditional way many people have done business in India. And yes, the lockdown has impacted a lot of offline sales, but businesses which are selling both online and offline, or what we call omni-channel now, are definitely going to be well suited for success in the long run. And again, starting from that question, Saahil, one of the things that I would love to ask you is that since majority of the people are saying that they want to be doing offline and online channels both, what is the advice that you would have for entrepreneurs who are now omni-channel almost, in terms of setting up their businesses, and as they think of logistics specifically and fulfillment? What advice would you have for entrepreneurs as they're now running fairly complex business, right? You may have offline outlets, you may have third-party stores, and an online business that you have to cater to.
Yeah, so I think, look, if you're starting out with a new business, I would definitely follow what Trisha did, right? Which is just go online first. There's no point in, I think it's a moot point, but I'm still making it. But don't think about going offline and online, or only offline is obviously out of the question at the moment. Strongly recommend sticking to online only. There's enough demand. Obviously, you have to have a differentiation again, that as I was mentioned earlier, your product mix has to work, but that's true even for the offline world, right? You can only go so far by having a Me Too product, and it can't really take you all the way. So that's a sort of a macro thing there. Now, when it specifically comes to, let's say, doing both offline and online, or doing business only online, I think there are 2 or 3 things that become very, very important, right? One is overall supply chain, right? And I'm not talking about just B2C or last mile, but just overall locking your supply chain is very, very important at this time, because there are inefficiencies at every step, whether starting all the way from the factories where you might source your stuff, or importers, depending on the category you're in, right? There's stuff getting stuck at ports, there's stuff getting stuck at state borders, states are going in and out of lockdown, there's all kinds of things happening, right? So one has to be extremely aware of how the supply chain is working. We had a couple of great panelists, over the last few days, talking about, sort of like eCommerce was here talking about inventory management and how to sort of map each and every part of their product or part of their inventory into one place to be able to track it well. So be very, very mindful of that, which is sort of the pre of the e-commerce bit, right? The supply side of the e-commerce. From a pure O2O perspective and from a logistics perspective, like I said, I think the good thing is that there were already various parts of that ecosystem already there. It's not like hyperlocal has not come up during COVID, or national deliveries, or any of the things we are now utilizing have been there. The infrastructure was built in India over the last 10 years, right? I mean, if we were 10 years ago, then yes, it would be a very, very different situation. But 1 decade has done a lot to logistics in India, right? Specialized e-commerce logistics now exists, cash on delivery exists. There's a lot of sort of innovation that has happened in the last few years in this space. So I think the advice would be to try and map your inventory very, very, very closely to your shopping cart or wherever you sell online. You could, if you're using Shopify, there are a bunch of tools. I'm sure GreenHonchos can help you with customization. The bunch of built-in features that Shopify now has. Shopify does support location-based inventory, as do all the other shopping carts, right? So I'm assuming that if you're a brand and you are selling on your website, it would be imperative for you to try and make use of all of this real estate that you have invested in retail storefronts. Try to convert them. It's not the best ROI, but it's some ROI, right? Try to convert them into fulfillment centers for your orders for customers nearby, right? And over time, if depending on, obviously, and I guess this is, you don't need me to tell you this, but if you are not able to make ROIs on certain storefronts, then let go of them, right? Sort of transfer that money or that investment over to digital marketing and try and bring more and more people through the digital doorstep than the retail storefront. But yeah, I think logistics wise, look, hyperlocal is already there. Point to point deliveries are there. You can store your goods even if you are facing operational challenges. You can even store your goods with a 3PL, right? Like Shiprocket, or like there's a bunch of people in the market that will store your goods in their warehouse. They will do your packaging and they will fulfill your orders, right? By integrating into your Amazon account or your Shopify account, and they run fulfillment for you. And then they can do a good job of demand planning. They can do a good job of making sure that your orders reach your consumers on time. And these warehouses obviously are in remote places, so they don't cost as much, and it brings your overall cost of storage as well as shipping down considerably by as much as maybe 30-40%. So definitely need to look at supply. I think it is again going back to my original point that the overall supply chain has to be looked at again, almost like rehashed in terms of, well, where do you go from now? Because your demand patterns would have changed so significantly that you might need to rethink that, okay, here is where my demand is now, and I have to relay the bricks of, you know, this new sort of paradigm of how things are going to look in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. So yeah, depending on what stage of your business you are at, definitely, you know, this is something that I'm sure you guys are already doing or will be compelled, you know, to do to get your business back and run more efficiently.
Thanks, Sahil. So again, there's a very valid point you raised, right? That as moment you're thinking about multiple channels or omni-channel, there's the whole question of demand. And Kush, I'd like to bring you in on this discussion here because one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs, myself as well, because again, when we're encouraged to explore selling at Shiprocket on different platforms and actually live the life of a Shiprocket seller and see the pain that our customers also have to sometimes go through, the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking about setting up an online storefront is, do I do it myself or should I just go to a marketplace? I think Trisha also spoke about this, as this was one of the major decisions they had to take. What advice would you have for entrepreneurs as they're thinking about whether to go marketplace, and assuming that they only have one option, right? There's limited inventory, they either want to bring it on their own storefront or go marketplace only. What are the kind of questions that they should keep in mind as they look to take this decision?
So I think the number one question which you need to figure out is first is how much bandwidth you have, and the second, I think the core thing is distribution, right? So if you think about different channels, I think there was a question a while back you asked, and then a lot of people were saying they shifted budget around different channels, right? Is around distribution. Now, we really believe at Facebook is having your own store presence is something that's super important. Now, that's one of the reasons we've come up with something called Facebook Shops, which, you know, Zuck was at the forefront of the launch, because for every business to have its own physical / digital presence is super important. So your short answer to your question, Akshay, is like, you know, we are a big believer when we say that, you know, every brand should have or every business should have its own presence. Now, you could do it, and then of course you could venture out. And I'm a big believer, as I said, of partners. Now, and the way, you know, it's done, and I'll, you know, give an example of how it's done in Korea, which is a much evolved market as compared to India. So what happens there is you have a equivalent of Flipkart, which is called Coupon, same as you know, as Amazon. What happens is there are about six website builders like Shopify. So Kush goes ahead, creates a store on Shopify or the equivalent, which is Cafe 24 there, clicks a button, clicks a Facebook pixel, catalog, you know, and different assets. Then creates another separate button, which is in their app store, and can use the same catalog to distribute across a Coupon, which is a Flipkart or a Snapdeal. Can use another sort of click and use their POS also, right? So that omni-channel bucket is sort of coming through, but the entry point, which I'm trying to say, is their own digital presence.
Understood. That's very insightful, and I guess the challenge that a lot of Indian entrepreneurs, especially first-time entrepreneurs in e-commerce, is that they're all worried, right, about spending all of this money on marketing and then not getting an ROI for it. Whereas they look at marketplaces and think, okay, you know what, they might be charging these high commissions, but I only pay once I get an order. So it's much they view the risk-reward scenario slightly differently. How would you counter that argument or that decision when entrepreneurs are thinking about this?
The question then is how do you differentiate yourself among the thousands of other people who are selling the same product? You know, so the question which we always tell businesses is, are you there for the short run or long run? You're absolutely right in the short run, right? Because if I have only $1,000 to spend, I'll probably only do marketplace because I don't have money to spend on a SaaS platform and then, you know, pay a a marketing fee, let's say to Adyogi in this case, right? Like to your point. But what we've seen is to brands who have been successful in the over the period of long run, they have scattered it out and they have scattered it by having their own digital presence.
Understood. Thank you. So Trisha, I guess now moving away more from the online selling thing, one of the things that I'm sure our audience would love to learn a little bit more about is how the pandemic and the changes in consumer preferences, what changes in consumer preferences you're seeing post the lockdown, and how it's going to impact the shape of your business going forward.
Sure. So I think the number one thing which I think would be most obvious is our entire immunity range, right? So because we had differentiated products, we always had an edge. But I think in terms of volume, our HerboFit, our Chakash, those products have seen an increase. I also found a very interesting thing is it depends on what's available out there. So we saw that certain allopathic diabetes medicines were struggling a little bit, right, in terms of supply, or there was high demand and they weren't able to. So we saw an increase in even diabetes, right? Some people sitting at home have realized that, okay, fine, we need to build immunity, we need to build our fitness. So products related to muscle gain, that's also increasing. Saying that was a good product even before, but I'm seeing even an increase now. Right, so we've seen a change in dynamic in terms of course, a lot more focus on immunity related products. Going forward in terms of our launches, I mean, we are looking at immunity and hygiene as a category, but we are again looking at differentiators or USPs, right? We have the Ministry of Ayush who gives recommendations, right, on this is what you should consume. These are the herbs that are proven beneficial for you. So we obviously do take a lot of that information and try and develop products. So our next product that we're looking to launch next week, for example, is related to Kadha. Kadha is a household formula that we all make at home, and technically we have all the ingredients to do it from our own kitchen itself. But still consumers want an easier, more convenient form to do it. So literally we're making a powdered product, which is a Kadha, which you just literally have to add hot water in and have it. Herbs are recommended herbs by the Ministry of Ayush, so we are looking at that. So that is how we are looking at the future. I think expanding this category will be important, but focusing on our existing category where we already knew has demand can't be ignored at all. So that's where we are kind of how we are managing it. It's also monsoon, so there's a seasonality of cold, cough that also has to be taken into account. So you can't ignore those factors as well.
Great, and I guess one last question was, Ayurveda was classified as an essential product during the lockdown, right? And we, even as logistics providers, actually saw a tremendous amount of people reaching out to us saying that, you know what, we have traditionally been selling only on marketplaces, and you know what, their operations are not happening because for whatever reason, the manpower is not there, the advertising is not happening. And we saw a lot of direct-to-consumer brands like yourselves actually be at the forefront and gain consumers during this time where some of maybe even the larger brands were just not able to operate. How has that changed your perspective, or how has that changed your conviction towards the D2C channel?
So, I mean, mine is slightly different because I always had the focus first on D2C, right? But this actually made it even stronger in terms of, I'll give you live examples, right? When it started, Amazon was one of the first marketplaces that kind of launched, but they were also only picking certain products, certain categories. Flipkart started, went off. Snapdeal started for our category a month after these platforms. A lot of our players who we were getting a significant bulk of our sales in terms of third players are still not recovered, right? Because they had their own operational constraints. Whereas when I had my own Dr. Vaidyas, I had full control of, can I take orders? Can I build revenue? Can I dispatch to the consumers, right? Can I know which pin codes to service? Can I not? I had that full control. As Kush also mentioned, this is a huge advantage. I felt that we had our own storefront, which was stronger than only relying on third place marketplaces, right? Again, to what Anshuk mentioned earlier in his speech about having advantages of ROI, yes, you did have advantages of having cheaper ad spends because there was not that much competition. but saying that you had a lot of operational challenges of high returns, areas going into containment zones, courier partners having staff issues. So you had to balance it. Okay, I have to keep a certain higher ROI than normal standards to be able to actually operate your business still efficiently. But direct to consumer for me is very critical. It's also, I do believe people think, oh, it's so easy to sell your own business, so simple, just send it to a courier, this, that. It's not. It's very, very, very difficult. It's really tough. You have to really have a thick skin. I think mine is developed and still developing. There are some days that Arjun and I literally are like, will everything go right today? And 99% the answer is no. Like something will go wrong because everything is not in your control. But really, all you can do is try the best. And initially, we would also get annoyed at the courier partners or annoyed at a supplier, and then we would realize actually take 2 steps back. We are literally in impossible times. Everyone is trying the best. Consumers, some have been extremely patient and understanding. Some you can see are extremely frustrated and bored at home. So the number of consumers who have a lot more time to spend on the phone. So an average call that would be 3-4 minutes has now become 8 to 10 minutes, with each consumer. So taking all these things into account, and you just have to keep breathing. I genuinely believe you just keep breathing because it's not all in your control, and you have to remember everyone is doing their best. So yeah, I mean, D2C is the way to be, but literally be prepared is all what I will tell people. Like, be prepared for it. It's difficult, but it's worth it.
Glad to know, and I could not agree with you more on the whole thing that you wake up in the morning and it's not about what's going to go right, it's about what are the 3 out of 10 things that are going to go wrong, because again, unprecedented times, unprecedented challenges. I don't think any of us, well, no one could have seen this coming. Navin, I just wanted to go back to you a little bit now on this whole topic that we've been discussing regarding new entrepreneurs and whether and again, forget new entrepreneurs. I would say, again, any entrepreneur who's looking at the online channel, what should it be, direct to consumer first or marketplace first, in your opinion? What is your suggestion that you give to the, I guess, hundreds of clients who come across GreenHonchos every month?
So I'm not sure. I think some of you, like Saahil and Anshuk, also know that I also run a private label D2C called Fashos. So we've got a private label called Fosto in footwear. So the D2C is something that's very close to our heart. Myself and my co-founder Sumit, we do believe that for brands with large inventories, the marketplace is a good test bed in terms of learning with a larger data size, just from an analysis perspective, and it's also good in terms of liquidation. It's a standard offline conundrum of EBO versus MBO. So I think so historically, when we also sit and discuss with brands that could be even generational old brands, they do understand conceptually how MBOs work and their advantages, and how EBOs work and their advantages. So very similar. Things like data, building the brand, retargeting, customer lifetime value, repeat customer purchase, drawing the right kind of cohorts, figuring out what are the upsell and cross-sell opportunities, how do you increase your basket size. Now, these are all things that are only pure D2C. There is no way for you to know. I mean, in fact, I was talking to, and it's not that I'm against the marketplace business. Cross my heart, more than half my business comes from the marketplaces, so hope none of them are getting offended here. But the fact really is, even when there is a single house of brands, there is no way to say, okay, I want to give this offer with this offer within 2 of my brands on a marketplace. They just don't even exist. So trying to figure out and participate with your consumer and all the fun and the highs and the lows of bringing in customers and servicing them, I do think it's much more fulfilling and wholesome 360 effort. Although I can see the stress lines and the receding hairlines and the grays, but it's very much part and parcel of what we do. Out and out D2C for me.
Fantastic. Coach, I'm going to come back to you on one aspect which we've spoken about, I guess, online selling, D2C versus marketplaces, but there's this new type of online selling which has really gained traction in India over the last couple of years, which is social selling, right? So it's selling on Facebook, which is your platform, it's selling on WhatsApp, and then you have more structured platforms like Meesho, which have come up and try to organize this. Again, what are your insights about social selling and how it could be a viable business model for many, many brands and many entrepreneurs going forward?
So social selling is here to stay, right? It's in different forms. As you pointed out, Akshay, it was very unstructured, and now partners slash aggregators or tech players are trying to do it. You know, platformize it. They're trying to aggregate a lot of how to say it, distribution which happens. Now, why it's going to happen or more in the future, and we're seeing early trends. Now, if I kind of compare India, which is WhatsApp first country, versus let's say Vietnam or a Thailand, which are more on Messenger, we're seeing much more transactions, much more data, much more interactions there. Now, what is happening is uh, what we've realized in Asia, people like to chat a lot. It's a behavior which is there. People like to negotiate a lot, and people like to ask a lot of options about whether this product is available in different either sizes, price points, and different location. Now, that behavior is to stay. We are a big believer, and as you pointed out, while Meesho's that done the early trend in India, there are similar platforms across Southeast Asia as well. So what I'm trying to tell you is while as I'll move to this same example as I said in Korea before. Once you create a website, which is the entry point, you click one button, you create a catalog, you create second button, you go to marketplace. The third button, which is moving towards, is around, which we call in Facebook language, around CTM, which is click to message, right? Which is the social selling aspect, which you're saying, which in the back end is tied to order management. And there are big players in Vietnam like Harawan, Pancake, doing $1 billion of GMV every year just doing this. So what you will see over the period of time is, as brands will get matured from website, the distribution will, and you touched about the topic about D2C and marketplaces. You will see a lot of distribution happening on these messaging platforms. So to folks who are tuned in, if you're not using, let's say in India, if you're not using a WhatsApp to distribute your products, or if you're not using Messenger, again you're missing out on a big channel in terms of distribution.
Yep, absolutely agree. And I think social selling, like you said, is here to stay. Saahil, I just want to bring you in on that conversation, right? It's something that, did we lose Saahil? I can't.
No, I'm right here.
Fantastic. So sorry, I just lost the video. So Saahil, social selling is something that has been very close to our hearts at Shiprocket. We power a lot of those sellers with the logistics. Just speak to me a little bit more about how tools like Shiprocket and can help social sellers actually expand their business, because unless you're going through a platform like Meesho, it's fairly unstructured, right?
Yeah. See, I think today there are, in social selling in India, and we go with buzzwords because that's how the media starts to define it. But really, I like to call it unorganized selling, or that's again a very, very basic form of D2C, if you think about it, right? Because like we've got sellers, merchants on the platform that literally run ads in a regional newspaper, and then have a team of 5 or 6 scholars who punch in orders into a Google spreadsheet, and then those Google spreadsheet orders get imported into Shiprocket, and that's it. That is their commerce, and it's a good business, depending on the region and the product that they're selling in. So would you call that social commerce? I mean, so for us, that is all unorganized, or let's just call it non-conformist commerce or whatever, right? Now, if I talk about platforms or the Facebook ecosystem, and if I talk about Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, typically there are two ways of doing commerce on these platforms, right? There is either you can either be a reseller, right, which is basically an affiliate, for some of us who are familiar with the older way of e-commerce marketing, or the pre-existing way rather of using third parties to promote your products. They promote your links, and then if somebody buys from those links, you make a commission, and that's how you get an army of people to push your products for you. But given that it's slightly more involved, and given that it requires consumers to land on a parent website, then make a transaction, you can't handhold the consumer in that process, right? Over the last few years, we have got probably hundreds of millions of WhatsApp first buyers, right? Or users who have joined the internet only knowing WhatsApp as their window to the internet, right? So they don't understand the whole concept of add to cart or checkout or register and CTAs. Like, they don't get that. For many of the audiences, especially in tier 3, 4 cities that have onboarded to the internet over the last few years, for them WhatsApp is their social network. WhatsApp is their shopping network. WhatsApp is their news, astrology, everything, right? That's where they receive everything for their daily entertainment or shopping or whatever. And I think social selling has to revolve around WhatsApp. Either it may with WhatsApp using payments, that will become a very, very critical part of how transactions get driven there. Distribution already, I think, while discovery alone may not be happening in a big way on WhatsApp, but definitely the closing is happening on WhatsApp, right? So it's like a perfect ecosystem. You can publish on Facebook, you can publish on Instagram, you can create a page, you can make your followers. It's all free, right? You can go to buy sell groups on Facebook, you can publish your products there. Buyers or resellers would comment in the comment box saying I'm interested, and that's the point you take the transaction to WhatsApp or to chat or Messenger, and you start to kind of negotiate or start to establish trust or start to establish the terms of the transaction, and you transact, right? So, and surprisingly, this is not only true, as Kush mentioned, only for India. In countries like Bangladesh or Thailand or Indonesia, some of these countries have a higher percentage of social commerce than even organized commerce, right? That's how big. And like Thailand, I know, has some of the big brands, cosmetics and all, just doing this on Messenger like full time. This is sort of a way to drive that kind of volume. So I think what I'm trying to establish is that it's a great channel. It's not very well documented. I mean, what I'm trying to say is there's no real playbook. There's a broad idea of saying, okay, here are the 5 steps you got to do, but it's not mature to a point where and I think Meesho is trying to do that to some extent by trying to kind of build some structure around this. So as a supplier, you can list on Meesho's marketplace. As a reseller, you could go there and source these products or the catalogs and start to share them over social media and drive purchase in between. But we still feel that there's a good amount of business happening even outside of any of these platforms, on Facebook or on WhatsApp or on IV on phone, right? Which was an interesting example I shared. I think Shiprocket, is when we designed the platform, we have been a very heavily long tail focused company, right? Ever since our inception, and Shiprocket is no different. We were the first company to not only launch our web platform, but very close to launching the web platform. Like a couple of months later, we have our mobile app, right? And we were the first company to kind of build a mobile app for shipping. Like no one really thought of it, and people just like, oh, why would you even do it? And initially, it did not even work that well, to be honest, right? Because there just weren't that many people who needed to use it. But over years, as social commerce became bigger, as these newer ways of selling became more prominent, so automatically the ways of shipping and collecting money or cash also became prominent, right? Now today, we literally have about 30 to 40% of our orders actually coming in from merchants who are typing their order in, right? So Kush, in the absence of a WhatsApp API of some kind, we literally just have merchants who they have no option but to copy paste or manually type the address of the buyer, and then we automatically send the link to the tracking, etc., to the buyer, which is a big help. The mobile app is a big sort of it's like the sellers business is running literally on WhatsApp and our app. So for many of our sellers, they use our app to do their invoicing, they use our app to do their business analytics, right? They don't spend anything on paid marketing, and literally this is what they have. This is how they run their business. So I think, and I was, like I said earlier, these are very novel times, in many ways. Not only from a lockdown perspective, but just how, like, the ingenuity of how entrepreneurs have adapted digital mediums, even the simpler ones, right? Like Google Forms, as I mentioned earlier, or phone calls, or simply using WhatsApp with pictures to convert them into digital transactions is very, very unique. And I think India will come up with several such ideas over the next few years, as more and more of the newer sellers and buyers keep going online. It'll demand for newer ways of doing transactions and doing commerce, right? And that'll keep happening as as we start to get more of the next billion potential people online to the internet in India.
Thanks, Saahil. Sorry, I've just been going through the many questions we've been getting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now move over to the audience Q&A part of the session. So I have questions that have come for a lot of people here. So I'm just trying to go. I'm going to go through them one by one and hopefully try and club all the questions that we have for each participant. So I'll start with you, Anshuk, because most of the questions that I'm getting, a lot of them are around online marketing. And I think the question we keep on getting again and again from our audience is, how do you choose an effective online marketing agency to work with? What are the things that they need to keep in mind?
Absolutely. So actually, this is a good question. See, I'll tell you what, a lot of marketing agencies today do a host of stuff, right? They would do right from creative creation, they would do content generation, they would do blog writing, they would do paid marketing, they would do SEO. Right? And even within paid marketing is not a small topic, right? Paid marketing, they would do branding on Facebook, they would do conversion campaigns, they would do non-e-commerce campaigns. Like, for example, they would do lead generation for a real estate player, right? And what I've seen is there is at least a wide variety of stuff which an agency today does. And each of them, while all of them come under the concept of a marketing, all of them require very different skill sets. Like, for example, the skill set of an SEO and a skill set of a paid Facebook campaign is very different. Similarly, the skill set of content creation, which is like blog writing or backlinks, and the skill set of a lead generation campaign on Google, SEM, search engine marketing, is very different, right? So my suggestion to all the e-commerce people who are starting or still having their business would be, number one, I think when you're looking for an agency, look for a niche focus. Okay, if it's not as niche as, let's say, e-commerce and conversion optimization campaign, which becomes very niche, even if it is very focused on, let's say, paid marketing, that should be good enough, right? So focus on niche, number one. Second, focus on those agencies who have worked on sale optimization, right? A lot of digital marketing began around 5-7 years back, where people started using digital as a branding platform, and slowly everything moved towards conversion. I think the discussion started first with cost per click around 10-15 years back when Google launched its first platform, and now it is moving towards cost per sale, return on ad spend, right? So move away from the whole concept of, can I get 1 lakh people to my website? Okay, what is my cost per click? Because getting 1 lakh people today is not tough. I can run a campaign in Jammu and Kashmir or Northeast, and I can get 1 lakh people at a very small price point, right? Or I can run a traffic campaign on a platform like Google or Facebook and get very cheap traffic on the website. But just getting those 1 lakh people is not going to get you conversions. You need to figure out the right set of people. And for the right set of people, what you need is a pixel on the website, Facebook pixel, Google pixel. What you need is a conversion optimized campaign on your website. And that's how you get sales, right? So be very cautious whether your marketing agency has those specific niche capabilities of configuring a pixel, optimizing a campaign for sales, and do they speak the language of sales, right? And you can find that out very simply. You talk to them. If the first thing they tell you is, look, I'm going to sell you a CPC for 5 rupees, you probably are at the wrong place, right? Or instead, if they tell you, look, I can get an ROAS of 3x for you, they are probably in the right direction, right? So they should speak the language of sales. They should speak the language of ROS. That would be the right agency, in my opinion.
Great. And I think the second question we had, you've already answered a part of it, but let me run you through that question and get your view, because the first part of that question is, what are the few effective marketing strategies for a new entrepreneur to create traffic on their website, right? Specifically focused on traffic. And the second part of that is it possible for an SME to market with low budgets?
Absolutely. I think, yes, it is possible for an SME to market with low budgets. I know when you go to a lot of agencies, they might tell you, look, you have to spend the first 1 lakh rupee to get traffic, and only then you can expect to get sales. Trust me, that is completely wrong. Today, getting that branding, getting that awareness on the e-commerce website is, in my opinion, not the best way to go as a small business. I'm not talking about a big brand who has big marketing budgets. If you're a small business today, you can practically start your first marketing campaign with a budget of as low as, let's say, 30,000 per month, which is like 1,000 rupee per day. And don't focus on getting branding on your website first. E-commerce is, see, if you're an offline store, you have your customers in 3-kilometer vicinity. You can do an awareness in 3-kilometer vicinity. An online store sells in entire India, right? How can you do awareness in entire India? If you do awareness in entire India, you will spread your budget so thin that you will get only traffic and no sales. Okay, so you can do with a 30,000 budget. My suggestion would be, for your first 100 sales, go to Facebook and Instagram. Even today, out of the 100+ brands we work with, 80 to 90% of the sales would come from Facebook and Instagram. I know all of us would believe that let's get some organic sales. Trust me, beyond your immediate friend circle, nobody purchases. And organic takes a lot of time to pick up, right? If you want to get your first 50 or 100 sales from organic, I think it's going to be a very tough nut to crack, right? So focus on paid. Organic comes much later. You have to put an effort from today, but the results will come later. And unless you are a very high intent product, let's say if you're selling protein boxes, right, then maybe Google will work. But a lot of e-commerce today is impulse. If you're selling apparel, you're selling shoes, it is an impulse buy. People buy it because they like the product and they click and make a purchase, right? And just a small addition there, if you're running your Facebook campaign with a budget of 30,000 and you want to get your first 50 sales, run something called a catalog sales campaign. A lot of content is there on Facebook Blueprint, as Kushish mentioned. Configure your Facebook pixel, run a catalog sales campaign, and attach your entire catalog, and let Facebook take care of the rest. Facebook's, I think, conversion optimization is really strong. Their algorithms will figure out a way of getting you the first initial sales.
Great, thanks, Anshuk. The next question, Trisha, for you is that one of our audience members wants to know that are there any ideas or marketing platforms that you used which surprised you positively? That is, the return on investment or the traction on those platforms was much more than what you expected.
So we use Adyogi, for example, right, to run our ads, paid ads especially. But I do believe that it cannot just be an agency. So we have a team of 3-4 people as well who look into it to optimize it, because at the end of the day, your team actually knows the product, right? Adyogi will know what is better depending on the offer, Facebook or TikTok or Google, like Anshuk just mentioned, right? Like depending on your budgets, they will help you recommend budgets. They will help you optimize it. They will know much more in terms of what tools are available. But I do feel like, I mean, there's no golden answer that a platform has taken a ROI from X to Y. I do think that it's a great combination. I mean, we've been working with Adyogi for I think now 18 months or longer. And over this time, we've built a relationship together. Our team is literally chatting with the team 24/7. A call is happening at least 2-3 times a day. So eventually, when your team has to be extremely involved, and soon you'll learn, like for us, we learned that Facebook works for certain products, Instagram works for certain products, TikTok, Google, depending on the category and depending on the platform, it works. But no, there's no golden marketing tool that works. I think it's a combined effort. I mean, we tried a bunch of agencies, to be honest, and Adyogi we worked with for 18 months. So that obviously says a lot about Adyogi as a platform as well, right? But it has to be both sides working very closely together to make it work.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trisha. Navin, I had a question for you, for somebody from our audience who wants to go online and their biggest question is that they have a limited set of inventory, right? They don't have multiple inventory of each SKU that they have, even though they have quite a few SKUs. What would be your suggestion for them as they look to go from offline to online?
If I could get a sense of the category, but if it's not available, I can, respond generically.
It's a very detailed question, so we have a lot of the details. So let me read it out. So the question says the only problem we see is that for each article we have limited number of pieces. Say for a shirt we have 2 pieces in every size for that color. So how do we manage the cost of photography? How do we manage the different platforms we want to set up in? How would you suggest, let's say it's fashion, right? You have a SKU with different colors, different sizes, and only a limited number of pieces in each in each color and size. How would you suggest that this entrepreneur takes their business online?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think even Saahil was mentioning that a big portion.
Sorry, the specific concern that this audience member has is that once the article is finished, most of them will not be refilled. Sorry, that's an important part of the question that I forgot to mention. So what suggestion would you have, because they want to know how they can scale this online?
Yeah, that is a typical problem, especially in fast fashion. I think replenishment, if there isn't, and also from a marketing standpoint as well, what sells and what picks up on the algo, if there's no ability to backfill that, it creates a larger issue. The campaigns go back into learning when new products keep coming in, and you'll have to run more and more of catalog ads, which is probably the only fair option. It is a tough one, to be honest. This is one of them where even if you think of your own website, D2C versus marketplaces, the photo shoot cost, that was one of the big issues here. I think it's a bit of a paradox, because I would actually re-emphasize and go on the other end. It's worth investing another $100 per catalog shoot, because especially in fashion, that's the only thing that really matters, the look of the product, apart from the content and the keywords, etc. I do see a lot more trials, and while platforms like Amazon and Flipkart, since they're DIY, could allow any kind of imagery to get through, I could say that, but in your own D2C that won't work. It won't result either in any good amount of impressions, nor in terms of any ROAS. So two things: investment in the catalog photo shoot has to be built into the pricing, and a good amount of it, I don't think it's worth penny pinching on that, because it is the start of a long tail impact if that visibility of the catalog isn't great. And yes, if you do not have about, let's say a depth of at least 100 pieces per style, the cost of the photo shoot and the related back-end economics just won't work out. So yes, it is a slightly deeper inventory game, no doubt. There will be 20% off inventory that would turn out to be top sellers, and I'm talking specific fashion to the question. But still, you'd have to invest, because you don't know what's the magic 80-20 out of it. So you'd have to go in for the full set photo shoot and wait for your top sellers. But yes, your costing can be built on that, and your replenishment can then only happen on your top sellers. You don't need to really, in e-commerce virtually, that's the big benefit. You don't have to sit with that entire head selection in your warehouse. So you can kind of just run your risks on your photo shoots with thin inventory, but have a plan for replenishment. Otherwise, it's going to be a unit economics negative game.
Great, thank you, Navin. So the next couple of questions we have, of course, we have a lot of questions on the Facebook and Instagram platform for you that are coming in. So the first question that we have is Instagram shopping available in India, and how can we enable this for our business?
Short answer is not 100%. It's what we're doing is what we call internally is a slow rollout. So that means is if you have a sales POC currently at Facebook, which means if you're spending a certain amount, on Facebook, on a quarterly basis, then your account manager / sales rep can help you get access. But for all unmanaged accounts, currently it's no. We should get there some point of time, either next half or the half later on. But as I said, like in a short answer is Instagram shopping currently is not at 100% rollout in India.
Great. Again, so but the good part is, right, hopefully within the next year or so, it should be available for more sellers in India. I think that's what the tentative timeline is, right, Kush?
We're going market by market. So I don't have a great answer of when it coming to India. Like for example's sake, Japan and Korea are 100%. So eventually it will come. I don't have an exact timeline. But
the second question we had is, where can we find where can we find information about the newer Facebook tools that keep coming out?
Sure. I think the best thing, which, the best source of truth, and this is something, when I joined Facebook 5.5 years back, when I was preparing for my interviews, there's a link called facebook.com/business/resources. That's by far the best resource. If you go to the business section of Facebook, you'll have columns like success stories, you'll have stuff like press, like blogs, and you'll keep updating whenever we publish a case study for a small business, or we come up with a new feature like Facebook Shops. It gets updated on that website or that blog.
Great, thanks, Kush. Saahil, bunch of questions about Shiprocket for you as well. So one of the questions is, when will Shiprocket fulfillment be available in Noida/Delhi?
So we plan to open. So we are live in Bangalore, by the way, and this is our first test run for our initial launch. I think in the next 60 to 90 days, we should be live in 3 more locations, which will be around, may not be Noida, but it might be around Gurgaon, Mumbai, and Kolkata. So we will be active in all 4 zones of India in the next quarter or so. That's the plan. So we also have launched the fulfillment product only in beta at the moment. It's not generally available to everybody, but the moment we cross our first few hundred merchants, it will be rolled out as an offering to the rest of the platform as well. So yeah, I mean, just sort of I think COVID slowed us down a little bit. We were delayed by almost a quarter due to the lockdown, given it did require physical operations to be set up. So yeah, I think over the next 2 to 3 months, you will hear from us as we start to launch this out.
Great. Next question: do you provide courier insurances? I love these questions.
Yeah, not yet. So it's in the pipeline. I think it's a product we are building. And so today, by the way, just for clarity, we do cover all goods up to 5,000 rupees of value. But anything beyond that is not something that is covered by default as part of our offering. But given that a lot of merchants have been asking for building an insurance product for items over 5,000 as well, it's coming. So it's in the pipeline again. I think it might be another 60 to 80 days before it's rolled out for everybody. But we're working on it.
I think a related question is, does Shiprocket give support for real gold and diamond jewelry? I think the answer is very much similar, right? If you want to get 5,000 rupees back in the event that your unfortunate event that your item gets lost, then sure. But we would suggest that you use specialized providers for very high value items.
Yeah, so you're right, Akshay, and that is mostly the answer. And honestly, as you guys know, Shiprocket is Shiprocket is a neutral platform, right? We can connect any supplier of logistics to any buyer of logistics on our platform. That's how the platform operates. Those are the rails of the platform. So given enough demand and given enough of an appetite, we could onboard any logistics partner, right? So if there are specialized logistics partners that do gold and do sort of jewelry movement today, we know that there are some. We know some of the larger carriers like Blue Dart also have an offering where they could do this. We just haven't had that much of demand in the past. And again, we don't know how the world has changed post-COVID, and definitely something we could relook at again. But again, we don't really know how strong the demand is and whether it's it's worthwhile building a full offering around it. But that being said, there are, if you need help in figuring out who those partners are, our supply chain team will be very happy to, help you connect directly with them, and, feel free to use them for doing work directly.
Great, thanks, Saahil. Again, I'm getting a flurry of questions right at the end for Kush. So Kush, we're going to get you back on for a couple of minutes because we're running short of time. So the questions are, is CTM available in India, and can we optimize conversions on the basis of WhatsApp events?
So on WhatsApp, no. So the only option currently you have is click to WhatsApp ads. We haven't, to the question you asked, Akshay, we haven't built an optimization based on a WhatsApp event on that click. But if you ask from Messenger perspective, yes. So if you integrate our Messenger API and our events API, or if a partner does, in short, then definitely from a conversion perspective, you can use it.
Great. In the interest of time, I'm going to send a lot of these questions to our panelists. So apologies to the other attendees of this event who had questions and we couldn't answer them. We're going to send those questions out and hopefully get you those answers offline. Once again, thank you to all our wonderful panelists. We've had a great discussion, almost out of time. Just wanted to hand over the podium now to Saahil to end the event and just share some last closing remarks.
Thank you, Akshay. And, as I said at the beginning of the event, many thanks to our esteemed panelists. Thank you for making time and attending this session, not only for today, but, there were people all across the industry over the last 2 days attending this panel with us. It's been an absolute pleasure connecting with all of you guys and working towards, sort of imparting our knowledge to the broader audience. And thanks a lot to all of the attendees. Thank you so much for attending this, and for sending all your insightful questions our way. It's been a very interesting 3 days. We obviously got to learn a lot from interacting with other panelists, as well as from all the questions from the audience. We hope to do this again every year. Maybe next year it might be in person, and we could actually do it at a physical venue. But until then, hopefully we can continue staying in touch digitally. There's some stats on the screen in front of you. We had about 1,500 people that attended this over the last 2 days, and today over 100,000 impressions, more than 15 brands, more than 20 experts, over 8 sessions, and over 300 questions asked. And 97% of the attendees found this session very insightful. So thank you so much, everybody, and thanks a lot for being part of this, and more power be to our merchant community. I hope again we'll keep stressing that let's go online. This is the next frontier, and it is literally if you're thinking about doing this, you're already very late. And reach out to us if you need more information or have any other questions or need any support. And thanks a lot for being part of this, again, panelists as well as attendees. Take care, be safe, and all the best.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys, thank you so much.